presentation. In the original Eventbrite, I promised that it would only be 30 minutes, 20 of those would be presentation, 10-minute Q&A. It wound up being that this whole presentation itself took, I think it was just a little bit over 30 minutes. So this re-recording is going to be the full thing, obviously, because this is, post that original event date. It's there's no Q&A, obviously. But I hope you still find this valuable. I think it's going to be great. Great presentation. But without further ado, let's dive into it. Let me just, I'm fiddling with my software here, and there we go. So, excuse me. So today we're going to be talking about 5 easy ways you can improve your ads online. So we're talking about mainly social media ads, but this will apply to Google ads, really any platform. So it could be YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Those two are actually the same ad manager if you haven't used them before, etc., etc. Let's dive into it. So the first easy way that you can improve your ads online, as you can see there, is to collect better data. Now, what exactly does that mean? I'm sure, or I hope you've heard of big data. Basically how Facebook, Amazon, all these various Fortune 500, Fortune 100, Silicon Valley companies are tracking everything you do. This is kind of a running trope. We're going to use this same data set to our advantage when it comes to our marketing. It's not as creepy as you actually think it is. It's okay, but let's talk about it. So the basics of how these things work is they use tracking codes. A tracking code is a small little piece of code that you add to your website. Every marketing platform of any use is going to have one. So Facebook has the Facebook Pixel. You can see actually down here. Oh no, that's on the next slide. Basically, Facebook has a pixel. Google Analytics is a tracking code. LinkedIn uses an insight tag. I think that's the name. We'll get into that in a minute. So basically how it works is you have this code at the top of your page. When a user visits a page on your website, this code talks to Facebook or Google or whoever and says, hey, this user just viewed this content. And they keep it all anonymous, but it's associated with your account. So rather than it saying Alex Vialette, it'll say user EFG hashtag 11 whatever. Basically, we're using a hex code in its place, so it's still all anonymous, but we can use it for marketing. So the data captured can depend on the code you're using. So if you're using Google Analytics, as you can see here, it gives you a lot of data, and it's really rich because it's meant to monitor website performance as well. But things like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Google Analytics, this ties into it as well, they're monitoring for what they're seeing so that we can retarget them. Google Analytics is more analytical. We're using it to see a bit more about how our website's performing. So let's talk about Google Analytics real quick. Analytics, specifically from Google, because you can get analytics anywhere, delivers the greatest amount of insight into user behavior. So what does that mean? Basically, you can see the normal stuff that you'll get from a Facebook pixel or things like that, where you get your basic demographics, age, gender, location, sometimes even device. It depends on the tag. But Google Analytics takes a little bit farther. So you can get time spent on site, goal completion, which as you see there, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. What pages are performing the best, what's getting the most content, which you could infer from things like the Facebook pixel or insight tag, but Google Analytics keeps it all really explicit and super easy to read if you do the free training that you can see I've got mentioned there. Google Analytics really is a skill. So much of a skill that they have it as a certification on LinkedIn. You can post your certificate from having completed the 3 different levels of training from Google. I will hazard though, it's dry. You could probably find things on like Udemy or Coursera or Skillshare that are going to give you more user-friendly, small business owner-friendly versions of this training that isn't just so much of a... Google's very techie. That's the way I'll put it. Their favorite program on their computer is Excel, which isn't a jab. That's my favorite program. But that's kind of the crowd that's gearing towards people that are using, like, doing coding, people like myself who are willing to sit through kind of drier training so that they can do these kind of things for their clients. I will say though, unlike the training, which is kind of a slog to get through, installing it is super easy. WordPress, there's tons of plugins that you just throw that in there. On Shopify, ridiculously easy. You just paste your tracking code into a specific spot. If you need to look that up, there's tutorials from Shopify itself, and it's the same thing with the Facebook Pixel, which we'll be talking about on the next slide. I thought it was going to be this one. So, why is Google Analytics useful, or how is it useful? Basically, we're going to be using it to make informed decisions about our content strategies and what we're using for our marketing. So basically, contextual example for what I've done with a position I've held in the past. We pulled up Google Analytics for the past 5 years. I worked in journalism, so in the last 5 years of publishing, we found common threads with what the top performing articles were, like what they were like and what kind of topics our users engaged with. So we took that, or I took that, and we just built out a little strategy for, okay, these are the kind of videos we're going to be making. We know that this performs well in blog posts, and people, just normal stats, people engage with video a lot more. So we're going to use these kind of topics and we'll craft video strategies around it. Otherwise, you can use it to allocate budget more effectively. You can see what which landing page are performing more positively beyond clicks. So, Facebook or LinkedIn, they'll say, this is how many clicks you got, this is how many completions you got. But with Google Analytics, you can see, okay, cool, this landing page is getting more clicks and more completions, but this other one, which is getting less, these people are buying more frequently. So you can get kind of better performance data. That kind of ties in there with the deeper ad performance understanding. You can see, so with, like, we'll pick on Facebook. Facebook will tell you, this is how many link clicks you got, this is how many content views you got, et cetera, depending on the metrics you're setting up. Google Analytics will actually tell you how long somebody has spent on the platform. That's my cell phone. I'm going to silent that. So basically, beyond that, you can deliver better reporting, kind of tying back into what we were talking about. I believe Google Analytics has a built-in dashboard reporting system. Most platforms like this do offer that. I'd recommend finding something or a way to kind of do this. It's really nitty-gritty. Speaking of which, you can really drill down into the nitty-gritty with Google Analytics to see how well something's performing. Like, okay, this specific, let's say we are a saddle, like horse saddle manufacturing company. We have a picture of a young kid on a saddle, and we have a picture of, an adult and then a mature rider. We can assign specific tags to see which ones are giving us more goal completions, longer page sessions, everything, so that we can really see, like, okay, might be getting less clicks, again, kind of like what I was talking about with the landing page, but it's performing better. Whew, that's a lot. Google Analytics is really a topic in and of itself, worthy of like 5 1-hour-long seminars. Dive into it on YouTube if you're interested, or you can bug me. Send me an email, Vialette alex@purplebird.ca, and I'm happy to send you some resources. So let's talk about the other side of the spectrum, which are retargeting codes. This is the term I use. I don't think anybody else uses that. So retargeting codes are things that you're going to get from advertising platforms, and this kind of software still, or functionality rather, is still built into Google Analytics, but the most common tracking codes on the whole World Wide Web, the WWW, are Google Analytics and the Facebook Pixel. So what differs between the Facebook Pixel and Google Analytics is that they're not trying to deliver, like, these are the pages that are performing best, this is what your bounce rate's like, da-da-da-da-da. Facebook is just paying attention to who's showing up on a page so that we can actually target them with our ads later. So rather than saying, say you're a coffee shop, I want to target people who like Starbucks. You can target a little bit better by saying, like, let's say you have a page on your website talking about the best coffee shops in Toronto, and they visited yours, well, actually a chain I like based in Toronto, Balzac's, say Balzac's has this blog posting where like these are the top rated coffee shops in Toronto or coffee roasters. If somebody visits that, they're more familiar with Balzac's now, so we can retarget them and they know that they're curious about trying a new shop. So that's kind of where Facebook pixels, insight tags, the Twitter tracking code, everything plays in with collecting better data. So using that, we're going to dive into targeting. Targeting is a really, really easy way that you can improve your ads using things like these tracking codes. So what I want you to do, and this is the little tagline there, I want you to empathize with your audience and keep in touch with the people who are interacting with your content. That's where the tracking code comes in. So when I say empathize with your audience, I want you to actually put yourself in their shoes. What does a new mom care about? What is a new mom interested in? What other brands do they like? What brands do they hate? What shows are they watching? These are actually all things that Facebook's audience builder can give you access to. It'll say, if you plug in, hey, what do the people that like my page also like? You can craft your content around that. What platforms are they using is a really easy step to improve your targeting. So if you're targeting, 60-year-olds, like let's say you're selling adult diapers. I don't know if 60-year-olds use them. We'll say seniors. If you're targeting seniors trying to sell adult diapers, don't do it on TikTok. Don't do it on Snapchat. Don't do it on Instagram. They're not there. Facebook is where you're going to get the bang for your buck, or, you can put up ads on Amazon Shopping. Different platforms all have different demographics, which is what I'm alluding to there. So TikTok is really big with the demographic that's south of 25. Instagram, you've got like a 18 to 30 range. Snapchat is really popular with people under the age of 16. 30-year-olds are kind of everywhere, so there's nowhere that really performs really well with 30-year-olds. But when we're performing or looking at basically 35 plus, you got LinkedIn. And then with Facebook, it's kind of like the largest demographic on Facebook is women 40 plus. So you can find all this stuff if you just Google it, like, social media platform demographics, and you can figure out where you need to be. Otherwise, really quick diving into Facebook ads, which again run on Instagram and Facebook. So if you're advertising with either of them, you're going to be doing it through Facebook. Use the engaged shoppers targeting criteria, which means like when you're putting in a behavior or whatever, you can put engaged shoppers, which means that these people have clicked on a buy now ad within the past, I think it's 7 days. I would hope it's a little bit longer, so that you know that these people are actually willing to buy things that they see on Facebook. So it's just a little bit higher performing. Let's talk about retargeting. I have a tendency to kind of run through my speeches, so I'm going to try and slow down a little bit. So I got a picture of twins here, and that's how we're going to talk about lookalike. But first, I want to talk about retargeting. I actually don't know if they're twins. They're just dressed like it. So retargeting is going to deliver you the warmest clicks on your ad. So these are people that are familiar with your content, and they know you. People are going to buy from brands that they know and they like. So retargeting really opens up the door. So the best way to do retargeting campaigns is with a tracking code installed. I don't think some platforms even let you. There might be ways you can, like you can retarget people that like your page, but I wouldn't really call that retargeting. I would just say that's targeting. More retargeting like that's under that is people who've interacted with your content. Facebook can track that much, and then that's kind of a retarget, but really pay attention to people that are going to your website. That's going to give you the best ROI. Lookalike audiences are really interesting. So they use either a CSV or a TXT list of emails of your clients. Facebook, for example, we're just going to run with Facebook. We'll take that list and see if any of those emails are associated with an account. Then what it'll do is it'll find people with similar interests to these users who are not that user. So let's say the twin on the left here buys your product, the twin on the right does not. Clearly, they have some similar interests. So we're gonna run an ad with a lookalike audience targeting them. You can also use your Facebook pixel, where these are the people that are, actually completing like Facebook's pixel can track, say these are the people that are actually buying and reaching the checkout page we're going to target people with similar interests because theoretically, they're going to be interested in buying as well. That's the idea, and great audience to use versus then generic targeting. I will hazard though, as you can see at the last point there, is that it takes time to build up traffic for this kind of stuff. You can build up an email list pretty quick if you're running contests and stuff, but not necessarily the most qualified people. Some people just want free stuff. In terms of the pixel, they caution that you need a certain amount of traffic per month before you should really dive into that stuff, but you can cut around it if you want. I'm not going to say you're going to get the highest ROI doing it, but if you're just starting out, you are just starting out, and it takes time to build up these kind of systems. So this is one that I actually have particular, we'll say beef with, is the offer. I have an issue with a lot of offers I see on ads. I think that's a really easy thing you can clean up. So you want to deliver value at every step. That's something my sales coaches have told me, is that are you offering something your target audience absolutely can't live without, or is it something that they actually care about? So there's 3 things that I say, or this slide says, if you really grilled me, I could probably come up with some more, that you can be giving away. There's entertainment, information, and something of monetary value. So this is all going to depend on what stage of the buying cycle your users are in, what you're going to be doing. Let's say, I like to pick on HVAC systems. Let's say you sell HVAC systems. If you're trying to sell to me, I need to know what the heck an HVAC system is. I have had that word in my vocabulary for ages. I have no idea what it is. If you were targeting someone who has purchased from you before, you could offer them a deal or something where it's like, oh, you bought this HVAC system, maybe you need a different fan. I should actually research these things before I talk about it. Otherwise, what do you want your user to do? You need to be specific, so don't mince words. So let's say you want to get their email so that you can add them to your mailing list and you have them there to nurture them over time, which is great if you're selling larger ticket items like HVACs or maybe a car, sales training, stuff like that. You need to nurture them a little bit more. So specify in the ad what you want them to do. Claim this free ebook. All we need is your email. You don't necessarily need to include that in there, but you want to say what you want them to do. I've seen businesses say like, hey, we're open, and then the ad just takes them to your homepage. You're not really going to be able to track how this has actually helped your business. So we're going to actually get into that in the next little bit. I'm not sure if it's the next slide, so I'm not going to dive into it yet. Otherwise, actually, you know what? I have it right there. What do you hope to get out of running? What do you hope to get out of running your ad? I'm picking on this. We're going to continue. I haven't looked at this slide deck in a couple days, so bear with me. So don't just send them to your homepage. You've sold them on an idea. Help them through the process. So there's a car dealership here in Guelph who I've seen run ads, and the ads are like, check out the new SUV. I don't want to specify the car model. But when you click on the ad, it just takes you to the homepage. Basically, how I would equate that is like if you walked into Best Buy, having seen a thing where it's like, hey, we've got great pricing on cell phones right now, and then there was nobody in the store. You're kind of just left to your own devices to figure things out, except for the person at the cash, and the person at the cash can't leave the register. That's what you're doing if you're just sending somebody to the homepage. What you can do is create a dedicated page for this kind of stuff, so send them to that SUV's product page, or you can build landing pages. I'm going to recommend lead pages. It's very affordable. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, I actually have a webinar coming up on July 29th. It's at noon. We're going to be talking about landing pages a little bit more, and we're talking about funnels, so stay tuned. Or if you're in the future, so you're watching this in August, check out the other video. It should be up. Otherwise, experiment with your offers. Don't keep them static until you find something that really works, but even then, what you find really works is going to depend on the time of year. So your back to school offer isn't going to work in February. You know, like you're going to have different things that are working at different times of year. So try things out. And if you find that nothing's really performing, you know, dive into what your audience likes. I've got right there at the last point under experiment, ask your audience. That's going to give you the best data. Otherwise, you might be stuck in your own biases as to what you think that your customers want. So talk to your friends about it. Talk to your family, talk to your coworkers. They'll be able to kind of account for your own confirmation biases and give you some good perspective. Otherwise, this ties into the funnel thing again that we're going to be talking about from right now. It's next week. Warm your audience up. Don't just come out the gates where we're like, hey, do you want a coupon? I don't know if I was in focus there, so I apologize if that was a bit much. Basically, how I would kind of give a tangible example for what that's like, where you're just like a brand you never heard of is like, hey, we're 50% off on sunglasses right now. No different than really aggressive salespeople at mall kiosks. So say hi first. Let them know about your product, educate them, and then the people that are interacting with that content, reward them with a discount code, because they're the ones that are going to buy versus the people that, like, if you're just spray and pray, giving out 15%, 50%, whatever coupons. So I kind of alluded to it. We're going to talk about ad goals. What do you want? Or I actually have a specific thing. I'll read that here. What are you hoping to get out of running ads? A campaign needs key performance indicators and defined objectives. Let's dive into this. So you've decided you want to run an ad, but what business goal is that related to? There was a greenhouse that I saw just run an ad saying what their hours are. Clearly you're trying to get people into your brick and mortar store, but what business goal, foot traffic isn't necessarily the best goal. And what they were doing is they were just directing people to the homepage. Like I said, it wasn't like we're still in COVID while I'm giving this webinar. You could say, here are our current hours. Book a dedicated time to do your shopping. This is how we're limiting. And that's how you can actually get people in there, because A, you're making them feel safe. B, you're actually able to track this kind of stuff versus like I saw the hours. I haven't gone in, but they don't get to see that kind of performance stuff. So tie it to something a little bit more tangible. There's some basic goals. What this one I'm talking about kind of falls into is brand awareness. If you're just trying to educate people, but there's better ways to do it. So with brand awareness, you can talk about, I have a client that sells eco-friendly baby products. A great brand awareness piece for them is one we're actually developing right now, which is composing my thoughts. We're going to be talking about the detriments of mass-produced baby products. So what disposable diapers are really doing to the environment. That's a great way to kind of say, hey, to your audience, like to introduce yourself. Otherwise, let's talk. I don't want to spend too much time on just the one point. Other basic basic goals are audience growth. So trying to get like page likes or people just, going to your website. Lead generation, great for B2B. Basically, you're going to be offering like ebooks or stuff like that, and you're trying to just capture email lists. You could even run webinars. Or conversions, which is basically like you're trying to sell somebody on a product. Put that way down on your client journey. That's going to take some warming up. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with the 15 or 50 whatever % code discounts. You need to really introduce yourself and your product before you try to convert them. Convert basically just means a sale. So spend some time thinking up key performance indicators. That's what a KPI is. I recommend SMART goals, which is kind of funny because I had a professor in college who said, you'll never use SMART goals after you graduate. I beg to differ. I recommend it. Basically, if you just use the SMART system, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, you're going to have everything you need to make well-defined KPIs. So deliver 10,000 clicks for the month of January. Specific, 10,000 clicks for the month of January. That's pretty specific what you're trying to get. Measurable, 10,000 clicks in 31 days, top knuckle. Achievable, that's dependent on the brand. For me right now, not achievable. If you're, completely pre-launch, don't expect 10,000 clicks. Relevant, Again, depends on what you're trying to do. And then time bound. So you have those 31 days for the month of January. Another one that this is an actual example for work I've done with a client is I want 100 contest entries each week. So we ran a contest for a week. We wound up getting 400 entries. So having that specific, you got 7 days. You're measuring it each week. Measurable also, it's 100. Pretty easy to check that. Achievable, definitely achievable. Relevant, again, depends on your business goals. And there you go. That's the idea. So these are kind of some ideas for how you can get it going. If you need to learn a bit more about SMART goals and you're trying to figure this out, Google it. There's a ton of resources online about building these things. Last is the content, because this is another thing that I see people flop on, and I want to counsel you on it. So the vehicle you use to deliver your ad is important. I would say extremely important. Make sure your ad is interesting to see and memorable. Basically, the content is what's going to make or break your ad's performance. People like high quality stuff. They can sniff out things that are shady, and generally if you're lacking quality, you're going to be put in the latter category. So make your content A1. Different platforms cater to different types of content. So tie this back to your platform choice that we were talking about with demographics. What makes the most sense? As you can see, I've got some nice lights behind me. I've got nice lights right here, and I've got a $2,000 camera pointing at me. I'm a little biased when I say video performs extremely well across the board, but video does perform a little extremely well across the board. It's worth noting, though, that you should play to your platform's content biases, because they do have that. Facebook loves video right now. A Facebook exec said that they think that the platform will be exclusively video within the next 2 years. I'd be curious to see if that actually happens, but if you just scroll through your feed, you're going to see a lot of the posts are video. That said, if you're trying to market, on Flickr, you might be seeing mixed results there because it's a photo platform. Video, on the other hand, might help you stand out. I will also mention photography and videography are becoming wicked accessible within the past 15 years. So this camera that I'm shooting with right now, if we wound back to 1995, something with this kind of specs would run you back, I would say, $10,000. I might have a professional videographer watch this and say, you're full of crap, but we're going to run with the example. You can get cameras that will outpace your cell phone for $500 on Amazon, or you can go on Kijiji and stuff. If you're interested in getting into your own video and photography, message me. I'm happy to help you find a camera. I love window shopping. But your cell phone works too. I shoot on an iPhone, and I'm thoroughly impressed with the results that I get with this thing. I will also mention that Facebook and other platforms kind of hazard you against text-heavy posts or images. They don't like that, and they find that it doesn't perform well, so they try to discourage it. So lean towards nice photos and videos of your products or your service versus, the 1 by 1 square just being filled with click here, click here, click here, click here, click here. Don't do that. Make it interesting. Okay, I'm going to actually dive back and just talk about text-heavy images real quick. I saw one ad that was trying to sell a 20-pack of fonts. I do design work, so I'm interested in fonts. It targeted me with that. And it listed all the font names, but it was all just one font. That's an example of bad content because it doesn't tell me what I'm going to be clicking on. I could see if I have the different fonts, if one might be interesting. I really you can see here these if it says choose your medium there, that is it's a heavier font. It's a bit more modern. I like that kind of stuff, but I couldn't see if they had any of it. It was just the one. That having said, it was also a text heavy image. So it depends on what you're advertising. You can kind of ignore these guidelines. There is so much rule bending in this industry, which is why people like me exist. Reach out to your local marketer. Reach out to me. Happy to help you. Now, I'd ask you if you have any questions. And I would ask you that because the slide says, do you have any questions? But like I said, this is recorded after the fact. I don't think anybody's actually going to be on this stream. I'm actually just going to be re-uploading it to test pre-recorded streams to see how this works. So I hope that this worked out well. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the platform I spend the most time on. I'm just Alex Vialette, AlexVialette. My name is in the description. There's usually nobody else with my name, so it should be easy to find. Otherwise, this is the first webinar I've done, and what I hope to be, what I hope will become a webinar series. So thank you for watching. It makes my little heart a little happy. Again, I will be doing another webinar on July 29th at noon. These are going to be bi-weekly Wednesdays at noon. So if you're watching this 3 years from now, there might be one coming up. Stay tuned, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'm going to quickly move over here